What up, what up, what up? I am Gramps. This is the AfrOtakus podcast. Now, this is going to be different from our typical AfrOtakus episode because now we're going to be putting on our tinfoil hats and we're going to be theory crafting, which is something we haven't done in a hot minute.
We must pay homage to him.
But check it out, because this has actually been something that's been on my mind for many months. And I'm like, yo, if I keep on sitting on this, I might mess around and reveal it. So I want to make sure I hop up on this, because even if it doesn't happen, it would be big brain moves just to think, what if? Just to think, what if? So what has been on my mind? It is related to Luffy and the Joyboy theory. Now, I'm going to say major spoilers for the folks who are not up to date on the manga. Because if you're not, you might as well leave and come back a couple years from now. Because you know y'all ain't going to be catching up to wherever we are for a hot minute. So get up out of here right now. But for the sake of this is related to Luffy and the Joyboy theory in the sense that, yes, he is Joyboy. And we know that from the latest episode. But he is the only Joyboy. So let me explain why. The Joyboy that we know from 800 years ago is Luffy himself. How? Time travel. We know that time travel exists thanks to Toki. And essentially, if a person can put people forward into the future, there's most likely a way for people to go back into the future. Let me just explain a few things. Potentially, how did he go back into the future? So I was thinking like, man, what are the different ways that he could have actually gone back? What are some different things that that Oda can potentially explain using somebody's powers or just all of the unknowns that we currently have in the story? Well, I thought to myself, well, one of the things could be Blackbeard himself with his darkness fruits. What if when he actually sucks objects into the darkness, that actually has some type of portal that sends you somewhere into the past or into another world? Think about Toriko, for the folks who are fans of Toriko, about how they have a whole world that you can end up in if you get ate by certain creatures. Like, for example, you get eaten by Neo that sent you to this whole other universe. For example, I was thinking that in that sense, you're basically being eaten by this time warping black hole. That was theory number one on how the Strawhats could potentially end up in the past. Another way I was thinking was the world governments. It's because you know that they have so many different things that they might have under, in their back pocket that we don't know about. So I was thinking, what if they actually have some kind of device that can send the people that are a huge bother to them that they can't physically deal with themselves, or just want to just make them disappear? Like a certain character that we know, like a certain character and location. What if they wanted to make somebody disappear through the means of time travel? So, for example, the Straw Hats get into this final battle with the royal government, and they actually end up sending them back to the past. And let's say they don't have a full grasp on this time machine. They just know that if I put this person in here and they blink away, we just know that if they're out of our here, they're going to be sent to some random time, which in this case, the Straw Hats get put 800 years into the past. Theory number 3, One Piece, the treasure itself, not the show, the treasure. The Straw Hats actually run into the One Piece, and in the moment that they actually discover what is there, some type of device or object that actually activates when it's found by Luffy, or it's activated by Luffy with some special means that only he would be capable of, that actually sends all the Straw Hats into the past. Now, of course, there can be many other ways that it can be done, so I'll leave that for you guys to theorize in the comment section. But let's talk about what the Straw Hats did in the past, potentially. So, to go back, yes, Luffy is Joyboy, and he's the only Joyboy. This is not a reincarnation. This isn't some type of soul jumping crap. This isn't any of those other things. This is legitimately one man making history in different time periods. He's hearing about himself from many years ago. Doesn't even know that it's him. So, the things that you can also connect with that would be God Nika. Luffy, with his powers, his ability to essentially create flame from his powers or his passion or something like that. We don't fully understand how that works, but we will get a better grasp of that as we learn to understand his awakening a bit more, and just essentially, is he actually taking in the soul of his brother, in a sense, a part of his brother, Ace, and using that flame ability. Whatever way that's done, we're going to realize that as Luffy actually uses those flame abilities with his Gomu Gomu no fruits, he'll actually create the legend that we know as Sun God Nika. And I was actually kind of thinking, like, what if they actually confused the Nika sound by calling him Nika because he makes that sound a lot? Like, essentially, when he awakens, he kind of turns into like a monkey-like form who goes, instead of Uki, he goes Nika Nika. And they actually call him Nika as a result, on some Pokemon type shit. So that's just one of the things that has also been going through my mind. And essentially, when we saw that giant Straw Hat fruit, well, not Straw Hat fruit, the giant Straw Hats that M-sama has, for some reason, just still looking over it, what if that actually has some connection to Luffy himself? What if that is actually Luffy's Straw Hats that he was able to gigantify when he does his own awakening with his ability to change the size of everything around him? He can make objects smaller, he can make objects larger through his awakening. Just like with rubber, you're able to expand things and potentially be able to compress them. Luffy has that same ability to change the size of all objects around him. Not just make this whole bouncy rubber world or whatever where everything can bounce all over the place, but he's actually able to change the size of everything around him. Think about how broken that would be, to just take an enemy and say, you know what? You too strong. Let me just shrink you real quick. Make you somebody that even my own father can handle. That would be dope. And essentially, Luffy himself gigantified himself during some type of crazy fight 800 years ago. And the only thing that was left as a remainder of that, because his awakened power never deactivated the objects that he changed, the only thing that was left was this humongous Straw Hat that he left behind during some kind of crazy fight. And let's just say, let's go back also into the reason why Toki actually knows about all of the things that Luffy and the Scabbards are supposed to do in this mysterious 20 years into the future after she was killed. You hear me say, quote unquote, killed, because she ain't dead. We know she coming back. Y'all know she coming back. But essentially, it made me wonder, like, what's the use of her doing all of this jumping forward in time to avoid a lot of this craziness, and then to just say, you know what? This is where I'm going to stop right here. What made her, when Kaido was attacking everybody, she said, all right, I'm going to send these specific niggas into the future. The rest of y'all, no, y'all can stay here and grow or suffer or whatever intentions that she has. Send one of her kids into the future, but leave the other one to stay. That has to be because she knew what had to happen in their future. She knew the specific people that she had to send into the future and specific people that she didn't have to send into the future. She knew when she was supposedly supposed to die or stop jumping into the future herself, because she met somebody who was going to tell her all of the things that were going to happen at whatever year Luffy fought Kaido and defeated him, and he unlocked his Sun God Nika powers. Luffy met Toki and told her everything that went down. He was explaining all of his travels and craziness that he got into. And as a result, not knowingly, he told Toki about her own children, Momonosuke and Hyuri, and her own husband, Odin. And when she got into this adventure of jumping forward into the future, when she met her husband, Odin, she knew, oh shit, this is it. No more jumping for me. So, that would also explain how Luffy and the crew got back into the future. They became very close friends with Toki. Told her about all the adventures. They got into some type of giant war with some entity in the past, which I won't get into the details in this video. But they got into a giant war with some type of entity in the past and ended up being sent back to their time, which is the present time. And, essentially continued the fight with that giant entity or some other giant entity to finish up the story of the One Piece. And that just had me thinking, okay, man, so what are all the crazy things that Oda can have them do in the past? What if they actually found the One Piece or created the One Piece itself? What if that giant, whatever Roger and the rest of his crew saw when they went to Laugh Tale and were laughing their butts off? Oh man, this would be crazy. What if it was actually Luffy that left some type of stupid drawing or painting or crazy piece of artwork just sitting there and everybody's just laughing their butt off? Like, how would you be if you traveled all over the world looking for some type of crazy treasure or just something that's never been seen before? You get to this land that's never been discovered by anybody. You feel like you're the first man to ever touch foot on it. You get to some secret little nook in there and you see a picture of somebody's scanned butts, somebody's ass cheeks on the scanner, and they're just looking like, I would be dying too. I would wish that I was in that same period that person lived in too, because I would be like, yo, this person just came to a plot of land that's never going to be seen again for many years, and they have the audacity to do something this crazy. I bet that person is funny as hell. Would be a joy to roll with. And that's why they call it the Laugh Tale, because at the end of the day, Luffy is still the goofy guy that we know and love. So, what else was I going to say? Luffy, of course, meets Poseidon, because we know that the Joyboy himself, he had an apology to Poseidon. He met the original Poseidon, and they became close friends, just like Luffy became close friends with Toki. And there's a certain promise that he made to her that he wasn't able to fulfill, because why? He had to get proof into the future before then, because he knew that's the thing that he was supposed to do, probably liberating the Fishman Island. He knew that he couldn't do it right then and there because it would mess up what was supposed to happen in the future. So that's everything with Luffy. Let's go on to Zoro. All right, Zoro. What could he have in terms of his mark into the past? Are there any swordsmen that we can think of that might have some type of impact that we've heard about many times over the course of One Piece? Ryuma. That nigga Ryuma, which supposedly Zoro is supposed to look very similar to, right? So there are actually two theories that I have in this case. So either one, Zoro is Ryuma, who chopped down a freaking dragon like it was nothing because you know what he can do right now, know what I'm saying? Or 2, Zoro is related to Ryuma in the sense that Ryuma is Zoro's child. Let that sink for a bit. Ryuma is Zoro's child, which would be kind of messed up, right? Because you're saying that Zoro is the father of somebody who is supposed to, somewhere further down the line, give birth to him. So that kind of creates like this whole crazy time loop, I guess you can say, where I'm my own father's father or something like that. So that would be a crazy way to go about it. Or we can just say, or we can just think about it like this: Zoro trained Ryuma. They both trained with each other over the years, where Zoro taught him so many different techniques. He never became as powerful as Zoro, but he definitely became strong enough where he'd be able to take down a dragon and create a whole history of Ryuma. And Zoro wouldn't even realize that, you're talking to somebody who is your freaking ancestor. You're training somebody who's your ancestor. You're making basically your own bloodline even stronger by your actions that you're doing all these years beforehand. That would be dope as hell. Not to mention, of course, Ryuma is going to have to teach Zoro something. Yes, Zoro has to come back to the future, some powerful by some means, know what I'm saying? Maybe he'll, teach him the power of, how to master his Conqueror's Haki a bit better. Maybe the Ashura will gain a 4th head or something. No, I'm stop playing. Let me stop playing. But yeah, that's my impact that I can see Zoro leaving into the past. Let's go into the next person though, Usopp. Now you know how so many people have been complaining about the opportunity of us going to Elbaf just because we know that Elbaf would be freaking crazy if we do go there, but Oda doesn't want to have so much time spent doing the rest of One Piece. Supposedly we have like 5 years left or something like that. It's all estimates. Everybody's always wrong with their estimates. So I'm thinking, okay, if they were to create a whole arc for Elbaf and still have to do this whole giant war and all of that, I can't see us having enough time to do all of that. So what if it was a much shorter arc, but much more impactful? Because Usopp actually has a much larger part to do with Elbaf than he thinks. Usopp becomes a great warrior of the sea because he founded some of the greatest warriors of the sea. Usopp founds Elbaf. He becomes a deity in the eyes of the giants who created this country called Elbaf by some type of major event that goes on at this country before it's even named. Oh man, this would be dope because he's so inspired by the giants and everything and wants to go to Elbaf and see these magnificent creatures, these giant warriors, ain't scared of shit. But then at the end of the day, they all look up to him, who they physically look down to. That would be so dope, man. And he's already a god to one giant. So what's the difference between him being a god to one giant and all of the giants that ever exist? This would be crazy. I'd pay to see this happen. So that's everything that I have for Usopp. You can get into the details of specifically what he does more in the comment section. But let's go on to the next person. Who else could potentially have a major impact? Robin. So we know that Robin is able to read the poneglyphs. She's able to, read the poneglyphs. She's very curious about the knowledge of the world. So, what can be more powerful than her actually having a hand in creating a lot of the history of the world? What if she uses her knowledge of being able to read the poneglyphs to actually help create the original poneglyphs. Because somebody's going to be tracking all of this craziness that's going on in the present, in the past, whatever time that they can find themselves in. Robin could actually be working with somebody to create those original rolled poneglyphs. But who could potentially create that? Who knows? Maybe Momonosuke. I know a lot of people would hate it because people will be like, yo, I don't want Momonosuke to become a One Piece. I don't want him to become one of the Straw Hat Pirates. Hey. If Golden wants to make it happen, he can make it happen. Or he can just be a temporary Straw Hat for all we know. That actually goes into the past and does all of this craziness. But all I'm saying is, I can see Robin having some type of connection with the actual creation of the royal poneglyphs. It's possible. She might actually create the language that they speak, teaches it to some of these people in the original Wano. Hey, that's all I got for Robin. Let's talk about our homie, the great American Franky. What does he do in the past? What do we know about Franky? He likes to make shit. And I actually have two things for Franky himself that could be humongous to the One Piece world. What if, one, Franky is actually the person who creates Pluton, creates one of the great weapons of the world, Pluton, the island destroyer, Pluton. And it would be crazy, because, they kind of typically put gags around Franky. What if it didn't actually destroy an island, but that was just a legend that was made because of some type of flashy move that Franky made Pluton do? I would love it. I would freaking love all of that. And then there's the other thing that's been bothering me. Why is Vegapunk so freaking advanced in this world, but so much of the world still seems very archaic? What if the person that actually trained Vegapunk is also Franky? The person that Franky's inspired by is a person that Franky created. So that's another way of re-looping things into themselves. What if Franky actually had one or two apprentices where Vegapunk was one of those people, and he taught Vegapunk most of what he knew to actually get him started? And Vegapunk actually never died. Why? Because he's a cyborg, just like Franky. He taught him the arts of science and physics and all that other crazy science stuff. And that is what actually created the Vegapunk that we know today. He was inspired by all of the craziness that Franky has done. He made himself immortal by becoming a cyborg, essentially. And he's been creating craziness after craziness over the hundreds of years, which would make sense why he's obviously the smartest person in the world. Nobody can collect as much knowledge as him unless they live as long as him and have as much passion for knowledge and creating all things crazy. So that's potentially Franky's impacts on the past. Let's talk about Nami and her climate tax. We know that Nami has a special relationship with weather and everything. So what if she actually is the person who created the Sky Island using an upgraded version of her climate tax? What if she becomes so freaking powerful that climate tech is able to create whole ecosystems, a whole system of clouds that you can walk on, thus being the inspiration behind the residents of Sky Island, Skypiea. From the wiki, they said it was the personification of the sky. So maybe the upgraded version of the climate tech is Uranus and was used to create Skypiea. Or maybe Skypiea is related to Uranus and the Lunarians, and that it is the inverse of Atlantis. Let me know if you're still following me right now. I said, so maybe the climate tech is actually Uranus that was used to create Skypiea. Or maybe Skypiea is related to Uranus and the Lunarians, and the fact that it is the reverse of Atlantis. So Atlantis being the island that's below the sea, this version being the island that is in the sky. The island that can't be touched by regular humans. The island of gods. So that would actually be dope as hell. Can't really think of anything else that Nami could have in the past, but that's what I got for Nami. Chopper, he was probably the most difficult person I could think of anything for if he were to be somebody that went into the past as well and had an impact on the world. But eventually I had to think about the Minks, and I had to think, what if, since he does have a lot of similarities to the Minks and, his physiological way, what if he actually is the original Mink? What if he created the Mink tribe by mating with, I don't know, a human, an animal, something, but he actually ended up creating that world that the Minks have thrived on. And it would make sense because, in recent chapters, we know that I'm just going to say Luffy in the past, because we're going to assume that Luffy is Joyboy. We know that Luffy would have been comrades with Zunisha. So if Luffy was friends with Zunisha, I can see Usopp easily being friends with Zunisha as well. And we're going to assume that Zunisha was a lot smaller, so she was just a regular giant elephant. And when he left his clan behind, or his offspring behind, the Minks were just sitting here like, okay, you're leaving us with the giant elephant? All right, bye, Dad. And they essentially went on to live the rest of the Mink life, eventually on the back of Zunisha, to create Zo that we know of right now. Next person, Sanji. I know niggas been waiting on him for a while, like, oh snap, what are you gonna say about Sanji? What's the thing that he got about Sanji? Okay, so I have two things. Obviously it's this one it's kind of obsolete at this point. I was originally thinking, what if instead of Luffy being God Nika, it was actually Sanji, and that Sanji, he can use his flame powers and everything, and he actually created the God Nika with his goofiness and how he becomes very floppy and wavy whenever he sees a woman, but he get very serious and activates those flame powers when he's feeling that passion. But obviously, throw that one out the window. So the other thing that I was thinking of is, what if he actually created the original Lunarians, or they were derived to his DNA somehow? So we have a lot of similarities between Sanji and the Lunarians, outside of skin color, of course. But we know that they have these extremely durable bodies whenever they are activating their flames. We know that they can fly, very similar to Sanji. And I was thinking, what if his body and everything was studied upon, or if they used his DNA, whether it was with Vegapunk or something like that, where the original Lunarians were created, and then they flew to the top of the red line to basically avoid all other humans, because they had these freaking wings on their back. People were calling them freaks, so they had to get the hell up out of there. And they flew away because they didn't want anything to do with humans. And with them being so much closer to the sun, what's that gonna do? It's gonna make your skin a little bit darker, man. Give me that melanin. I gotta get that protection, baby. So so they proceeded to go over there and get stronger. Their passion for for life in general became stronger and stronger, just like how Sanji's passion is, and their flame powers got stronger and stronger. Their bodies became much more tougher as a result of those genes that they have from Sanji. And then not to mention that extremely high speed that they're able to move into whenever they're not in their flame modes. Just like who? Just like your boy Sanji. We saw what he did to Queen when the man went into his speed mode. He couldn't even be seen. Was he invisible? Was he not? Who knows? So that's my thing with Sanji. Not too convinced with that one. So let me know if you can come up with a better theory on something that Sanji could do in the past. But let's go into Brook. This one's kind of a gag because I couldn't really think of much for this one. But what if Brook was actually the first Jolly Roger that was created? What if it was actually created based on his face? Somebody saw this giant freaking skeleton face going around doing all of this craziness. They were like, yo, that's dope. I'm putting this on a flag and let's freaking wave that around to let you know, yo, the homie Brook is coming around. That's the only thing I could think of for him. That was kind of a gag. And then Jinbei, let's just say if Jinbei were to actually be having an impact on the past, I would say he actually became the founder of Fishman Karate. And then he was actually used to free some of the fishermen slaves from the past, who then went on to create the Fisherman Island that we know right now. So that's all the things that I have for the One Piece Pirates on just the craziness of why Luffy himself is the actually only Joyboy. Because they went into the past. There's a bunch of craziness that created the legends that we know right now, and then was poofed back into the future thanks to who? Your girl Toki. Let me know what y'all think of that. Obviously, there's a lot of craziness with this theory. Obviously, I'm going to expect people to be pointing out a bunch of holes and things within that theory, but there's a lot of possibility to it. So let me know what y'all think. Peace.